of 1, so I'll have to be running around just a little bit at points, so I hope you'll forgive me. But we're about ready to get started then. I wasn't quite sure how many of you there will be, so we'll see how many of these I can pass out before out we run. And get ready for it, because here it is. There it is. Thank you, everyone. I'm well prepared. So that right there is the table of contents, which sort of gives you an idea of the breadth and scope and girth and weight and other synonyms of the project there. I'm sure I'm going to be wandering around. We're going to make it really hard for you. OK, so basically, this right here, oh no, is my senior year project, which is a complete guide for student technical directors at Newton North High School, which will be given to them and hopefully as they enter the summer into their senior year, which they will read and study, and which will train any member of a stage crew, probably at North, but I am looking into publication options with a few different people into how to be a student technical director. So basically, the question that spurred my writing of this handbook, and the one that I try to answer as much as possible in its text, is the question, what is theater at the high school level? Or more specifically, what is technical theater at the high school level for? And there's this quote that I always use when I'm asked this and I respond, and it's from a member of controlbooth.com, which is sort of an online forum for technical folks working in the performance industries. And it goes a little something like this. High school theater is not about putting on great shows or playing with moving lights. It's about getting kids interested in theater. And I took issue with this pretty immediately from the moment I saw it, which is that it's through putting on quality productions and it's through striving for professional level theater that students become interested in it. And how can you expect to attract new recruits if you put on mediocre level productions and don't even let them play with moving lights, which are really, really cool? So to use an example, athletes don't spend 4 years getting interested in their sport by studying theory or by half-assing games. They get on the field and they play. And it's absurd to suggest that theater, and technical theater specifically, should be approached in any other way. Now the stuff I should have said in the beginning. My name is Chris Annis-Lee, and I'm the student technical director for North's theater program. Our motto is a teaching and working theater, but it really should be, I'm putting on my timer in case you wondered, it really should be a teaching through working theater, because our method for instructing students and getting them excited about all of our 11 to 13 yearly productions is about teaching through working and through putting on good productions. So just a few examples for the uninitiated. This is Urinetown in this very theater, which I designed the set for. This is The Illusion, which I was in. This is my most recent light design of the Comedy of Errors in this space just a few weeks back. All My Sons, my set design. Caligula, which I directed December 10th of this past year, which I had a strong hand, to say it lightly, in the technical aspects of it. And of course, my set design and co-lice design of the most recent big musical, Cabaret. So stage crew is at the heart of every single one of these productions. We designed the sets, the lights, the sound, and we've designed them for every single one of these shows and every single one of Theater Inc. shows that are really countless across its history. But the issue is that before the student technical director arrived on the scene, we didn't remember that history. Each new generation of students walked into stage crew's completely blank slates, which they then, mind you, they filled that up with knowledge, but when they left, it all vanished. It all vanished with them when they graduated. Teaching and retention of knowledge didn't become a priority until the introduction of the student technical director position in 2002, 2003. The first one was Jacob Palches, and he was asked by Adam Brown here to write this handbook, and he didn't. But I was the second person asked, and I'm very glad that I was afforded the opportunity to, because it's been great. Well, since Jacob graduated, we've made leaps and bounds as a stage crew. But the problem has now evolved from each year having to relearn design principles to each year having to relearn how to be a student technical director. And for those of you who don't know, a student technical director is Well, we're not really sure, is the fact of the matter. One of the first obstacles in writing this handbook was that the job description is not well defined at all. The job description of a technical director, on the other hand, is very well established. It's a college-taught, world-recognized profession with a Times-Minton definition. It goes a little like this. Working collaboratively with the scenic designer and others, the technical director is responsible for the execution of the scenic elements of a production, and it goes on and on and on. But if you want to talk about student technical directors, the definition is quite a bit hazier. Many high schools, if they have a dedicated technical crew at all, don't have a student technical director. And when they do, the job description is very loosely defined. The characterization that I just sort of scanned, put up there for you, it doesn't exist in any form at all for students taking on the position. And I mean nationally. And I mean that in 2 months of searching, I was unable to find a single definition for a student technical director. And in 2 months of searching, I was unable to find another single student technical director across the country named as such, at least via extensive searching on the internets and other places through industry contacts. Because I of course, wanted to email them and interview them about what was going on, but I couldn't find a single one. I assume that there are others, but really the writing of this handbook has become the writing of that definition. And it's my hope that with it, future STDs, yes, it shortens to SCD. It's very funny. At North and elsewhere, and I mean elsewhere, if the publication process proceeds, which is a possibility, we'll have a much firmer grasp on exactly what they can achieve through dedication and through hard work. But first, I should establish my method and my angle of writing this handbook. When I first was preparing, I put out my action plan to a lot of online forums, and I interviewed a couple of North stage crew alumni. And the feedback I kept getting is, you can't just write an instructional manual on how to operate tools. For one, this has been done before, and a heck of a lot better than I could ever hope to do. And for two, of what lasting value would such a work be? Because tools become obsolete. In lighting and sound technology, for example, an instructional manual would lose its relevance after about 5 years and become completely obsolete. And the fact of the matter is, we're moving into a new school, so I mean, I haven't even been allowed in the building. How am I supposed to instruct people on step-by-step how do you get from point A to point B in a theater I've never set foot in and I've only seen very sketchy ground plans for? And besides all of that, I can't think of a more boring way to spend my time than copying instructional manuals into a complete book. So then the goal becomes clear of this project, which is it's about teaching. It's about taking a subject that is learned best by doing and providing the tools to facilitate that self-education. So as I said before, maybe I didn't, I divide the handbook into 2 sections. Part 1, your duty to your crew, and part 2, your duty to your company. So how about we start with part 1? If we get to part 2, that would be grand, but it's the less important part anyway, because it's really all about your stage crew. So I begin by establishing everything an incoming student TD should already know, such as your tools, your theaters, your storage spaces, your design techniques, your shops, and your crews, before moving on to safety. I put the safety section relatively early in the handbook because it is something that really can't be skipped and really has to be kept in mind when reading anything else that I've written here. I should point out that with this safety section, very little of it is my own original work for this particular maybe 5 or 6 page section, because frankly, I'd much rather trust an industry specialist than trust myself when it comes to safety and when it comes to putting the welfare of my crew on the line. These are some examples of things. I'll direct your attention to number 2, which is it's talking about a safety cable, which is this. Which, when a light is attached, as you can see with my most recent design of the Comedy of Errors above you, when it's attached to a bar, this safety cable is run from the yoke of the light all the way up to the bar and attached. If it fails, it won't fall and hurt itself or others. But something I didn't know is that when you use a safety cable on any and every fixture that is mounted above head height, if it is called to do its job, if it catches a falling fixture, you must retire it immediately from service because it is no longer safe. I didn't know this. We haven't been practicing this in Theater Inc., and that's no good. So my hope, this is a perfect example of, with safety procedures especially, what I hope to change in that I want to set the record straight and then have a document that people can refer back to keep things right and to keep things safe. Because a lot of the safety cables that we're using are probably will probably not hold if they're put under pressure, which is something that we need to change. So I'm skipping around here, but the next bit I'd like to quote from is in the recruiting section. So obviously, stage crew can't function without bodies at work. A decade ago, in 2000, there were around 25 students in stage crew, and now there are 7. But this kind of ebb and flow is to be expected. But if no active recruiting is done, that number can drop very easily to 0. So I provide a few suggestions here, one of which is using the morning announcements. These are all sort of standard things that I've sort of thought of myself and also learned from my interviews with people. And then Club Day is another one. I think Club Day started while I was still here, and us stage crew attending Club Day, and I was initially skeptical of it because I don't want people to think that stage crew is a club, because it's not. Because I've really never heard of a club at North that puts in 30 to 60 hours a week, and really doesn't get paid much for it. And then moving on to flyers, we have access to the graphics department, very nice people who will make things for us if we ask politely and give them some money. And that's certainly another thing. Also the school newspapers, the Newtonite, and also, anyone remember Blueprint? Haha, I was on that. That was fun. And then, of course, local middle schools are also extremely important, such as going to them and organizing meetings with the drama clubs and if there are technical organizations. I seem to recall a few of them at Day, but not a lot. That's your audience, and those are the people that you have to be reaching out for. And I also describe the way a new recruit's first day should probably go if you plan on keeping them. And it goes a little bit like this. What you're doing is giving your recruits a chance to actually see and experience stage crew, which takes far more than just one day. Consider giving a tour. And please, whilst touring, don't boast about the hole you caused in the ceiling when you almost fell to your death. This works against you, surprisingly, and in all but a few cases. Believe it or not, a simple description of the equipment is extremely impressive. You may be jaded, but your recruits have never seen this stuff before. I hear the new school has a 3-foot wide spiral staircase. That's pretty sweet. If you have an excuse to pull out the scaffolding, please do so. I find it an effective method for impressing folks with very little effort. So outside of that, Part 1 basically divides itself into 2 sections. The first being how to create a working environment, which is something that's actually a lot harder than it sounds. And the second being the primary focus of the handbook, which is the education of your crew. So to start with the first one, a good working environment relies on many subtle devices that the STD puts in place. An obvious but frequently overlooked example is music. To quote the handbook, I've seen it with my own eyes. A musicless crew is a slow and ponderous beast. People have no sense of purpose, no timing to follow. To use an antiquated analogy, sailors on Roman war vessels would row to the beating of a drum. So play some music and put some wind in your sails, but know what kind to play. And this is the part where I sort of jump around a little bit because I'm a one-man crew here. This is the importance of a running crew that I discuss later. But so there's good kinds of music and there's bad kinds of music, and it's pretty simple and easy to identify which ones are which. For example, I'm going to play one, and you guys just shout out which one it is. So is this good working music or bad working music? Well done. Okay, so and then let's just move on to some good working music here. So that's a pretty good example of good working music versus bad working music. I hope you've enjoyed it, this presentation by Chris. But moving on, it's something very simple. For example, in my research took me to that place across the way. I don't know if you've heard of it, Newton South High School. And here's a surprise, surprise. Newton South High School, well, they listen to show tunes while they work. And they work slowly. I timed them. It takes them, I don't know if this is solely because of the music. For my current thesis, I'll say it is. But they take about twice as long to do the things that we do here while listening to mindless self-indulgence as opposed to Suddenly Seymour, which is a great song. But, Suddenly Seymour. Okay, so that's that basically as we progress forwards. And then on top of this, you need people to work with a purpose. And a method that I've perfected that is a clear identification of anti-productive habits is to identify these habits with easy-to-remember names. If people are working slowly or just wandering about, I can now simply point to them and shout, "Scamper!" And they know what to do. They know to scamper. It's very simple. It's very lined out. They understand it. It's not sort of just yelling at people. It's explained to them initially. But I mean, here's a very basic concept: is if someone is walking across the stage, and it's about conducting yourself in all walks of life. If someone's walking across the stage like this, they're not scampering. Fact. Versus if someone walking with purpose is walking like they have a reason to live. I don't know. And it's methods like these that will allow stage crew to do things twice as fast as Newton South does, along with the not show tunes situation that I described earlier. So basically, that's all of the piping that's laid for the actual education. Then within the education itself, I have two sections that directly address methods of education, one in which I break the whole thing down into 8 general steps, and another in which I recommend what each grade level should know by the end of their year with the incoming student technical director. And the one, I'll just quote from phase 1 of 8. No, I won't. Haha, surprise. Basically, here's how it is every support is intact. The newcomer is a pair of eyes floating beside you, their teacher shadowing, their teacher shadowing, watching, imitating. You explain everything you do in as detailed a manner as possible. Work is slowed down by this, yes, but the faster this phase can be completed, the faster a new worker will be formed. They can't be trusted with any of the equipment for safety and productivity reasons, so spend your time acclimating them to the organizational system and the operation of all of the tools. For some, this phase lasts 1 day. For others, an entire week. And now, of course, phase 2 is sort of introducing them to more broad general concepts and specifically how things work. And I've got sort of a demonstration lined up that I can sort of show to you a little bit here if we dim the lights. And I was hoping someone would be sitting in that seat, because then I could do this and it would be funny. But it's OK. I can readjust it to Alice. There we go. Well, just for funsies, I'll put it over here. This is an ETC source 4. I'm going to sort of run you through what I'd explain to an incoming, let's just say a freshman, or a half-timer, as I describe it, someone who doesn't really come in that much, be it for a variety of reasons. But basically, the source 4 is defined by a couple of things. We'd start with the big stuff, the cap, which houses the lamp, and the electrical workings that lead down into the power supply. And then, of course, we've got the main body of it, and then the barrel. And the barrel is, of course, removable, which is very exciting. It can also be independently focused. And this allows you to make the outside edge close, far, anything that you so desire. This right here is the gel holder. And I have one here. This is a gel that actually pulled out of my light design here. And as you can see, it changes the color. The full name is gelatin. They used to use colored glass starting in the 1700s. My paper was on the history of light design, so that's one of the things that helped me in making this. And then, of course, you've got these shutters here, like so. And basically, in phase 2, all you're going to do is explain this to them, and then they'd watch you do it. Phase 3, you start to give them simple jobs like take this, grab it from downstairs, and bring it up here. And then you start to talk about hanging. And, oh, well, since I've got this, I'll just demonstrate. These are lights that I have hung. This is my most recent light design of a comedy of errors, the comedy of errors, rather, by one Bill Shakespeare, well-known fellow, I guess. I think a lot of people like him. And so just to jump away for a second, the comedy of errors was my testing ground for a new method of teaching, which I'd like to institute as a support, one of the many supports of which phases 1 through 8 describe the getting rid of. So it basically goes a little something like this. I kept a complete production journal for every day of the production process of the comedy of errors. And the way that worked was I started with, this is the complete handbook, 70 pages. And I started with a relatively sort of simple my initial thoughts, which is sort of this page here. For example, my first two read-throughs of the play and discussions with the director have yielded a guiding concept for the design: sunlight. That's how it begins, with a single word, sunlight. And then from that concept, I developed all these things, but it's not important really what they are, more that this is how I developed them. And it's, once again, it's not about saying this is a source for, this is a source for par, this is a parallelipsoidal lens, this is an ellipsoidal lens, this is what you do with them. It's more about saying this is when this happens, this is why this happens, these are the guiding concepts for why they happen. So it sort of continued on, and in the beginning I was just sort of writing very sort of small things, and then we got into the actual production process of the Comedy of Errors, which is this here, amongst other things. The way I dealt with the magical moments, you can see here, is we rented a lot of sea changers and placed them around, and this is all described in detail in the actual production journal. And so my hope is that when people read this, when freshmen and sophomores who have never designed before but have been given a new design, this will act as a replacement design assistantship. If a production isn't available, or if they don't have the time to do it, they'll be able to look into this and say, oh, this is where Chris did this, is where Chris did this, where Chris did this, one after another after another. And of course, I do also describe basic things, such as the making of my, how am I doing on time? I don't know. Let's find out. Such as the making of my circuit plot, which looks like this, and is a way that I organize my lights. And I explain step by step how I made it, and how I go forwards with it, and how I implement it. And then I also have a complete example of my master plot, which includes all the DMX addressing and all of these things. And basically what we're talking about here is something that's extremely complex, and that most students don't learn until they go to college. But we have to set up a system whereby people can learn these things and put on the professional quality products that we've come to expect at Theater Inc. for a couple of reasons, mainly because that's how you get people interested, to circle us back to the conclusion. So my hope is that with this Student Technical Director's Handbook, stage crew will stop slipping back to its native state every 4 years, and will start being able to retain its knowledge and progress forwards in a way that will take it with, when it's completed next year, the most technologically advanced theater setup, not just high school theater setup, in certainly the Northeast, in the entire Northeast, and allow us to use that new technology in a manner that is befitting of its complexity. So thank you all very much for your time. Thank you.
Q&A now?
Yes, indeed. I'll stop this madness. There we go. Yes, friends. Oh, let me pop the lights back on for you. Yes, sir.
I was wondering if you have plans on publishing this online for like other schools to use?
Yes. It's not. I'm not quite sure exactly what's happening. I'm talking with the publisher of Medi, which is a lighting instructional manual. I met him through Control Booth, this online forum. I had posted like portions of it and asked for advice, and he sent and said, talk to me at the end. It was very sort of indefinite, and I'm in conversation with him right now. I'm not sure what's going to happen. What I'd like to do is take everything that I've written and put it on a wiki that is editable by password, so that this can be a living document, like the Constitution, which would then continue to grow after I leave, and that each successive student technical director at North would be able to put their own thoughts on. Yes?
Sorry if I was a few minutes late, but I'd like to find out
Yeah.
from you how you became interested and got into this position of an STD and how you're going to pass that on.
Right.
You move back.
Sure. Yeah.
It sounds like, because you're imparting this on so many other people who you have benefited from your, how did you learn all this? How did you get into it? Was it club day for you? Like, how did that start for you?
Well, it's an extremely long story. That is, it's actually completely ridiculous, the randomness, the sheer randomness that led into me doing this, which has now define, like I'm going to a conservatory for lighting design. And I would most definitely be an actor and not I'd be like scared shitless of stage crew were it not for these like very random series of events that led me to become its head, which is weird, the way the world works. But basically, driven by guilt, by an incident in my past that involved messing with a board I didn't understand and ruining a show, I showed up for stage crew 3 weeks before school started my freshman year, because I had heard there was going to be a gathering of, I think you had told me that there was going to be a gathering of people there, and I sort of watched as seniors Dan McLaughlin and Sean Paul changed the fuse boxes, and sort of was terrified, and then it sort of continued onwards from there. First year was hard. I think I stayed mostly to spite them, and then after that it sort of got easier as I began to, yes.
You talk about the ways to, I think you talk about recruitment.
Yes.
And that sort of thing. You started with announcements and ended up with the middle schools. What should you do to go into those middle schools? In my opinion, those are the feeder schools. That's the place to get those kids involved. What would be your plan to go in and present this as being accessible, exciting, and engaging? What would you do?
Well, I've done it. I've done it now twice. I first went with the I think representing you for the do you remember what's called, the career in tech ed thing, and I went today, my old stomping grounds, and basically I got up and sort of Joella talked about Theater Inc. and I talked about Stage Crew, and we sort of split the time evenly, and I pitched it as a place where anything is really possible, where you can come in and you can learn things that other people just don't learn around the country, and being an incredible opportunity that will absolutely consume your life if you want it to, and if you don't want it to, will be an extremely fun hobby and a getaway from the rest of your life. Does that answer your question?
How do these skills translate to other things?
Sure.
You're going for theater design, and let's say
Lighting design.
design.
Right.
But what if you want people to be involved, but they're going to go on to other things? How do these skills transfer?
Right. Well, actually, one of the bits I have in recruiting, the recruiting side that I didn't have time to learn, was one of the ways you can keep recruits is not view them as people who are here to set the stage for their career, but potentially just people who want, to spend some time around a bunch of really dangerous tools and get off on that. Came out wrong, but yeah, but let me rephrase. People who just want a hobby, and it's really about being able to see them for what they are and to give them the respect that they earn. And if they're there to work and if they're there to participate, then you treat them exactly the same as you would anyone else. And it seems unlikely that they'd get a design because they're not here enough to earn that knowledge. But I don't know. It's about, like I said, creating a working environment where everyone who works is respected. I don't know if that answers your question.
Sure.
Sure. Yo.
So I know that handing students a bunch of papers and telling them to read it is kind of difficult. And what makes your handbook something that's readable and that students will actually read it?
Sure. Well, I should start by saying one of the things that differentiates Stage Crew from the general student body is that we read instructional manuals for fun. That really is something that we do. Like, I wouldn't be up here as a chem TA saying, I've written a book for chemistry that I'm going to give to people and they're going to read it over the summer. I mean, because that's what we do. Like, I've just got to finish the 1958 A Method of Lighting the Stage by Stanley McCandless, which is yeah, I know, it's great, right? It's an ancient instructional manual which holds no relevance on the present, but I loved reading it, and everyone in Stage Crew loves reading handbooks. But additionally, one of the main things that I've done is, you sort of heard that I've written it largely as a prose piece, which is that my mother is an English teacher. My experience outside of theater is entirely in English, and in writing, and I write poetry and short stories in my spare time, and I've worked hard to make this a good read, as opposed to just being an informational read, which it is as well. So it's not like the safety section, because I didn't write a lot of it, is lists, but a large portion of it is lengthy prose pieces, which are not necessarily meant for quick reference, but for the slow absorption of information. Because when you're teaching someone, you can't be like, wait, hold on, let me go look at this. It's about reading it and enjoying it to the point where you get hooked in. Like I said, it's not about putting on crappy productions and then getting people interested. It's about providing them with a handbook that's not just providing with the bare details, but is fun to read, and then they will become interested, which is in keeping with my general policy. Well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much.